We got the 2023 GS Trophy Edition. Lots of cool features on this bike. Obviously the Trophy 1250. It's got the shift cam in it, all 1250s do. And it's the Trophy color scheme, which gives you, you know, some pretty interesting colors, but also some billet valve covers, or head covers I should say. Everything's keyless. Keyless ride. Also, you can see the option 719 mirrors. I am not a fan of those. I'm just not a fan of them. Also, these aren't plastic, these are billet. So the billet package is nice. One of the things that they've done now too is they've improved some of the body panels, so everything is kind of flush. Even the crash bars on the side are slightly different than last year's model and the year before. They also have a built-in USB charger instead of some European DIN lighter socket thing that you have to get a conversion for. They also changed the handlebars to a black powder coating. Really not a lot other things going on the bike. One of the exterior features too that you'll notice, which is kind of a bummer, is due to the chip shortage, they run a halogen headlight on these instead of the adaptive LED, which is like a step back into 1995. Again, they're doing this because of the fact that they can't get the chips to make the controls and the headlights and everything else. What BMW is saying though is that they will, and they originally had mentioned, they said no, what you get is what you get, but now what they're saying actually is that they will offer a retrofit kit, and the retrofit kit will allow you to do a $500 swap out. So they're so generous too. They're like, oh, we'll eat the labor on the installation of the headlight, but of course it's still expensive. And BMW has taken $500 off the price of the bikes that have that headlight, so you can purchase the new one. But it just kind of stinks it doesn't come with it that way. Adjustable windscreens too. I mean, this is a GS, so all the stuff that you're accustomed to on the GS is here. The rally package is no shortage of options either. Now with the shift cam, if you're not familiar with this and you're coming from like a 1200, which is the bike that I currently have, the shift cam allows around 4,000 RPMs to essentially change the valve timing a little bit. And what it does is it opens up a little bit more power, where the engine kind of dropped off before. The variable valve timing, it allows it to have a little bit more fluid power delivery. You can really feel it come on when you get on it with the shift cam. And the suspension, the dynamic ESA suspension that these GSs have, really is nice because it allows the bike to be able to stiffen suspension. We have to wait. There we go. It allows the ride to stiffen suspension as you're rolling on the throttle based on feedback that the sensors in the bike have as far as pitch and lean angle. I feel that the engine has a little bit smoother of a power delivery with the 1250 engine versus the 1200. It seems that when you roll onto the throttle, it's just a little bit more friendly and not as jerky. Now I do have it in road mode, so if I change this to dynamic, it'd be even more pronounced, more crisper. But as it sits just in road mode itself, the bike is very responsive. If you've never driven a GS before, I recommend finding when BMW is going to do a demo day and demoing the bike. It is a popular model, so most of the time you have to pay attention to when they're offering the demo days and get there early to sign up, because the GS always gets booked out. But the bike is a bike like you'll probably never ride before, and if you're like me, when you test drive it, you'll end up wanting to sign up and drive, because it's just a phenomenal bike. There's just a lot going on with the GS. Why do I like the GS so much? Let's just unpack just for a second. It is an extremely versatile bike. It's the Swiss Army knife of motorcycles, in my opinion. It can keep up on the road, no problem. Long distance touring, no problem. Very, very, very comfortable to ride. Partially due to the upright riding position, so everything's in line. It's not a cruiser, so you're not going to be slung way back in the seat with forward controls, but your feet are in line with your hips, so it's a very neutral position, and it lends itself really to long distance riding, and you just don't get the Charlie horses and the cramps and all that jazz that you do sometimes with other things. The other thing that's phenomenal about it, because it's purebred for, off-road, I would not take this bike off-road into, single track riding. You can, and people do, and there's plenty of YouTube videos out there of people really just belaboring the tar out of these things. But my opinion is it's just too heavy of a bike to go into these single track areas where you're gonna have a really hard time because of the size of the bike and the weight of the bike. But that being said, for a bike that's got 1250 cc's of displacement, this bike is no slouch, and off-road, selecting one of the pro modes for riding, you can really spank this thing. You can get the tires spinning, go through sand, no problem. It really behaves. And the traction control in this bike, I just think BMW really has dialed it down, because it's not overly aggressive, especially if you have it in enduro mode. It seems to temper the traction control with understanding you need a little bit of wheel spin to do what you want to do. Here's the other thing I really like about the GS that makes me, again, say it is the Swiss Army knife of bikes. The ride quality is excellent because it does have pedigree for off-road. It's designed to be able to soak up bumps. It's designed to be able to hit a pothole and not totally, throw you off the bike. It's very, very, very user-friendly when it comes to rough terrain. Up here in New England, we have a lot of rough terrain, so this bike just really enjoys rough road riding. The other thing I want to say it's unique to this bike, but I'm not sure if there's another motorcycle manufacturer out there that does this, but it uses a cantilever, telelever type suspension that has a lower control arm, and what that does is amazing, because if you're in sand or anything where the front nose is going to take a dive, you're able to jam on the brakes and not get front nose washout and nosedive. Like, the bike doesn't do that. Because it's got a spring lower on the travel of the suspension for the front forks, the bike is very stable and stays upright, which if you're going into a corner really hard and you have to jam on the brakes and it's loose, without that, and you get the dive, you go into Plowman Central and you go betwixt the sticks straight off into the willy walkers. So I think BMW's thought process behind that, and it's been on these bikes for a long time, is really well suited for this style of riding. But it also is nice when you're not off-road and you're just jamming on the brakes for an emergency stop. Speaking of the brakes, these bikes have an excellent braking system on them. So I just took it up to redline there to show you, but there's absolutely no loss of power in the power band as you're going through the gears on this. It's very, very linear in its delivery. And most of the GS models, pretty sure it's almost like a standard feature now, have a quick shifter. So you could just bang through the gears and just rip it. And no clutch is needed. You don't let off the throttle. You just hold the throttle steady. It works in every gear except first, so you can go down and up with the quick shifter. Let me show you. I'm going to go down into third. See? You just hold on the throttle steady and you just jam it down, and in a you know, positive engagement mode, and it actually shifts beautifully. As far as handling goes, again, with the suspension setup on road, the bike has very, very good manners. An analogy that I would give you is if you build like an off-road Jeep or pickup truck or something and you drive it on the road, it's really a chore. You're fighting all the time. It's not comfortable. There's a lot of noise. The GS just has a good balance. I think the tires, that Anarchy Wild 3 or whatever tires they come with on the factory, they're kind of noisy. Personally, they're not the tire I would choose, but they're more of like an 80-20, and they make a lot of road. There's a lot of road noise. Like I can hear it on this bike, and this bike has 1,100 miles on it. I can already hear it. I'd probably go with. I really like the Heidenau series of tires because the way they handle on the road, and they're aggressive and they don't make noise and they wear like iron. But anyways, that's beside the point. The other thing too on this bike that I've noticed is kind of annoying, but it's really not a deal breaker, is the adjustable windscreen. So a lot of bikes now have electronic windscreen adjustment. This does not. You have this knob here that you have to crank up and down, and it's kind of annoying. And at 6'4", this thing is like right in the buffet zone every time I'm riding with it. I actually have to have it a little bit lower than the tallest setting, and that seems to help the most. I put an aftermarket touring windscreen on my 1200, which again is fundamentally the same bike, and I noticed that it blocked so much wind that not only your visor fogs up immediately when it's chilly, but you get zero wind flow in the summertime. So then I put a sport one on that's really, really short, and it does nothing for wind protection or rain protection if you're out in the bad weather. So to me, I think the factory one is perfect. They have it basically suited for the average rider. I just happen to be a couple inches taller than the average rider. I am 6'4", so another big thing that comes on with these bikes is the height. They want to know, like, how high is too high? Can I ride this bike with my current height? Because anytime you get into upright riding positions and adventure bikes, you know, the ability to stop and handle a bike depends on your height most of the time. So I would honestly say that if you were somewhere in the 6 foot range, you should be able to handle one of these bikes. The driver's seat, the front seat is adjustable. At least on my 2018 model, it has 2 notches in the front and 2 notches in the back, so you can go up and down. You can buy a lowering kit for the seat. It has an offset cam. You can also buy aftermarket seats, of course, but you can also buy a factory low seat and a factory high seat. So I'm 6'4". I have a 38-inch inseam, and with the factory seat, no problem, flat foot on the pavement, not a worry or care in the world. If I flip on the high seat, the heel is slightly light on the back, but it's still flat foot on the pavement, and to me it's the optimum riding position for my knees. Like, my knees are not crunched at all. That extra inch that it gives you is perfect for stretching out. And then the low seat will bring you down, you know, at least another 1.5 inches. So that would lend to a smaller person having plenty of ability to ride this bike. I've sat on some of the new Triumph Tigers, and it's like, you got to be like 7 foot Stretch Armstrong to be able to ride those, because they're so tall. The other advantage to the bike, with its riding position being upright and it's not being excessively top heavy, is that it puts the center of gravity a little lower. And of course, we know the heads of the bike are down low, so that also is a bonus. But that really helps when you are cornering and maneuvering this bike at low speed, because everything is so low, it doesn't tip very easy. I mean, obviously you can drop the bike, no problem, but it makes it, you know, you're less likely to have a low speed crash with a bike that has a low center of gravity. It also makes it easy to maneuver around in the garage, that type of stuff as well. Another bonus it has is that if you dump this bike, say you're off-roading and, you know, you do a low speed crash, it's really easy to get up. You know, it's really easy to upright. There's some videos out there on that, and essentially what you're going to do is place your butt on the seat, your legs on the ground, and you just kind of stand up with the bike. But because of the balance of the bike, it's relatively easy. I have dumped a lot of bikes, and I would say the GS is one of the easier bikes to lift back up. The Tigers, I got a Tiger Explorer, very heavy. If you drop it, you almost need help picking it up. Definitely not friendly for off-road, because you may be by yourself and dump your bike and not be able to get it up, which would be very bad. I apologize, I know we're on a demo ride. I'd really love to give this thing the spanking it needs, but it's just not going to happen today. Like I said, if you get a chance to take one of these on a test drive, you know, get it on the highway, on the on-ramp, and really give it what for, and you will be impressed and pretty surprised at how much power these bikes have. I believe the 1250, don't quote me on this, I think it's got 136 horsepower, somewhere around there. The new Harley Davidson Pan America is like 150, but this bike has a lot more usable power because the torque is down lower. I mean, I don't know how much more power you need with a bike like this without getting yourself into really serious trouble. The front wheel is loose as soon as you really give it some gas. You're going to feel a little bit of a looseness in the front end, so you're right at the edge of usable power anyways. Thankfully, the computers on these do a really good job of knowing when to gently retard the throttle to keep you from wheel spin or wheeling or tipping over. And of course, you can turn all of that off if you want to go smoke a tire and, you know, pop a wheelie. You can easily do that. These bikes have a lot of different modes. So you have rain, road, dynamic, pro, enduro, and then you put in this little chip thing, and it allows you to go to dynamic pro and enduro pro, which basically allows you to unlock traction control and ABS fine-tuning, completely turning it off if you need to. And it's a little plug that fits underneath the seat. You just put it in and it allows you to adjust it. What are your thoughts though? I mean, have you driven one of these? Did you enjoy it? I'm curious to hear what you think. I've driven all the big adventure bikes, and I've always come back to the GS Adventure, the 1200 or 1250, just because it's such a nice package. It's so easy to manage, and it's fun. It's super fun. Oh, by the way, I think it's a 7.1 gallon fuel tank, and range is going to depend on how aggressively you drive, but 300 miles is not out of the question. So that is nice. Some of these new bikes come in with a 100-mile range. It's like, what do you guys, what are you thinking? Of course, this is more designed for the adventure rider that may not have a gas stop every now and then, but I mean, a nice big tank, and it doesn't feel heavy. Okay, it doesn't feel super top heavy. So super duper refreshing, super fun to ride. And again, like I said, a lot of power in this engine. You got a lot of torque down low. So when you're in a off-road situation and you need to blip the throttle and get the front end up over a log or a big pothole or whatever, it's easy to do that. You don't really have to think about it. And then on the road, of course, we're probably not going to be popping over a log or anything, but you know what? It makes it more fun to ride, because you can just crank on the throttle, you know, real easy, go around a corner, whatever you need, and the grin factor is there. So, well, that's about it. I again appreciate your coming on with a ride with me. Again, I like these bikes a lot. These are my favorite platform out there. That's why I own it. Not prejudiced to say that I have problems with it. If I did, I would for sure say that. But BMW really makes a good bike. They really do a good job at research and engineering. And if you have a problem, their warranty is excellent, and they also stand behind what they sell. So check them out, give them a shot, and tell me what you think. I appreciate everything as well. We rely on you guys, and we love you watching the videos. So as always, ride safe.